But tonight, we will start with the latest in one of the cases that has captured a lot of public imagination. No relief once again for Shah Rukh Khan's son, Aryan Khan. He will spend another night in jail. His bail hearing will now resume at noon on Thursday. However, there is now a new twist because the Narcotics Control Bureau claimed in court today that Aryan Khan is linked to a foreign drug peddler. Aryan maintains he has not bought or sold any drugs, nor was any drugs found on him. So is the NCB simply changing the goalposts to corner Aryan Khan, or does Shah Rukh Khan's son have much to answer? We're going to look at the functioning of the Narcotics Control Bureau, but first, take a look at the story.
Aryan Khan will remain in Arthur Road Jail. The Narcotic Control Bureau on Wednesday made new claims in the special court that spells trouble for the superstar's son. The NCB claims it has recovered Aryan's WhatsApp chats with a foreign national, which mentions commercial quantity of hard drugs and mode of payment for them. The Bureau told the court it has approached the Ministry of External Affairs for help to locate the foreign national. The startling allegation has given a new twist to the cruise bust case. Appearing for the NCB, Additional Solicitor General Anil Kumar Singh claimed Aryan and his friend Arbaz Merchant left Aryan's house Mannath together and that Arbaz was in possession of drugs, which could be for consumption of both the accused. The NCB told the court Aryan's bail could hamper the probe. The agency claims that SRK's son was in contact with arrested drug peddler suspects Achit Kumar and Shivdas Ramdas Harijan. The probe agency has allegedly recovered drugs in commercial quantity from these accused. During the 3-hour hearing, Aryan's lawyer Amit Desai read out the sections imposed on him to claim no narcotic substances were recovered from him. Desai said Aryan was intercepted by the NCB officials even before he boarded the vessel. Desai stated Aryan did not have the substances to sell or to consume, or the money to buy them. Aryan has denied knowing the other accused arrested in the case, including model Munmun Dhamicha.
The hearing in Aryan Khan's bail plea will continue on Thursday morning. It remains to be seen as to what the court makes of the arguments put forth by Additional Solicitor General Anil Singh, wherein he said that Aryan Khan had international drug racketing links. Well, all of it will be known only after Thursday. With cameraman Sunil Vaidya in Mumbai, Vidya for India Today.
Let's raise questions that have sometimes in the last week been lost in the din over this case. Is the Narcotics Control Bureau, the country's premier drug investigation agency, conducting a fair probe here? Is it fair to bring in the Khan factor as some are doing? Is there political pressure on the NCB? What explains the NCB shifting the goalposts constantly? That's some of the questions that I want to raise right at the top today. I'm joined by B.V. Kumar. He's former head of the NCB, so he knows the NCB inside out. Rizwan Merchant is one of Mumbai's leading criminal lawyers, has done several such cases. And M.N. Singh is former Mumbai Police Commissioner. Appreciate all of you joining us on the show tonight. B.V. Kumar, to you first. There is a huge question mark over the way the NCB has gone about this case. There were 1,300 people on that cruise. The NCB catches a few of them. It appears that accompanying the NCB on this raid into the cruise were people who were linked to the Bhartiya Janata Party, including someone who was a corporate who had contested for a corporator election. No drugs, it appears, are found in possession of Aryan Khan, yet his name is among the first to be put out as having been arrested. And now we are told he's part of an international drug network, after no such information is given in the last week. Explain the story for our viewers.
Thank you, Rajdeep, for inviting me. In this case, I must very clearly point out that it is what is before the learned judge of the NDPS court is whether he is entitled for bail or not, Aryan Khan, as well as his friends who were also detained with him. Now, the question is, it is not necessary that a person should be found with drugs. Possession itself is not a criteria for a person being arrested under the NDPS Act. Suppose a person is financing purchase of drugs and then distributing through peddlers who are working under him, he will be very remote from the whole operation. So here, if that comes under the provisions of Section 27A of the NDPS Act, which talks of financing as well as harboring of drug offenders. Now, in this case, the NCB claims that the WhatsApp chats clearly indicate that he was in touch with major international suppliers of narcotic drugs. So they were prepared to, or I don't know whether they placed before the learned judge, the extracts or the what they took out from the WhatsApp chats. If that is so, then there is a case for the NCB. Suppose the WhatsApp chats do not reveal any such thing, or if any of the suppliers have come and given statements before the NCB that they have supplied drugs at the request of Mr. Aryan, then things would be very different. It's for the honorable judge to evaluate the evidence that the NCB has placed before them. Now, he claims that he is a drug addict. And if that is so, and if he's purely a drug addict, that's a very different proposition. Then he comes within the provision of Section 64A, where he can claim, as his lawyers have pleaded, that he's an addict, that he needs a regular supply of drugs, for which, for personal consumption only, he has procured the drug. Now, in this case, no drug was found, apparently, according to the defense lawyers, but it was a merchant who was carrying the drugs and other things. As I mentioned, a rich person, or for example, even a minister, when he's traveling, he doesn't carry his baggage. There is somebody else who will carry his baggage. So in this case, I don't know whether a merchant was acting on behalf of Aryan Khan. It's a question of evaluation of the evidence by the honorable judge, and then the correct picture would come out.
But
that's what I would like to say.
Okay, I'll come back to you in a moment. You're giving us a sense of what are the provisions under which the NCB is going about this case. But prima facie, Mr. Merchant, the NCB has brought in today's hearing a new element into this case, saying that Aryan Khan was connected to international drug networks, to foreign suppliers. Do you believe the NCB is changing the goalposts in an attempt to keep Aryan Khan for the longest time inside jail? The defense is arguing that there is no need for further interrogation. You've already had him for sufficient days. What's your sense? Is the NCB changing the goalposts in this case in an attempt to keep Aryan Khan in jail for the longest period?
Rajdeep, I was always of this particular view. This is what NCB had done even in the case of Riya Chakravarti when she was arrested with her brother. They initially came up before the remand court and said that this is a bailable offence which has been disclosed against them. However, we need just 2 days for the purpose of investigations. And under the pretext of investigations for 2 days, they brought up the charge of financing of 27 capital A only on the basis of the WhatsApp chats that were available to them in the cell phones of Shovik as well as of Riya Chakravarti. This is precisely what they tried out here, and unfortunately they have succeeded. What is shocking is that if NCB, who is represented by leading lawyers, they are supposed to know that if an offence is bailable, they should not even ask for remand. The Supreme Court in Rasiklal's case has made it abundantly clear that there is a duty which is cast on the magistrate based on the declaration and the disclosures made by the remand officer, whether it's a bailable offence or a non-bailable offence, to consider the fact that it's a bailable offence and give bail to the concerned accused. Now, if they make a statement that it's a bailable offence, then they should not be demanding time for investigations. There's no question of demanding time for investigations. Our Bombay High Court has held that in respect of a bailable offence, you can't even have a conditional bail. You cannot even impose conditions for the purposes of bail. Now, if that be so, if you are represented by lawyers, you are supposed to know the law. They should have very fairly conceded on the very first day that he has committed a bailable offence. He should be enlarged on bail, but let him be directed to cooperate for the purpose of investigation, attend our office. As we have seized his phone, we would like to scan the phone and then further up with the investigation. This is what I was apprehending on day one, and this is precisely what has happened. They have now come up with a particular case that his telephone instrument was scanned. There were some WhatsApp chats. Now, you see, today, kids, when they do on WhatsApp chat, they are so fast that they type on short forms. Now, those short forms are being translated by NCB as code words for the purposes of either calling for drugs or purchasing of drugs. This is something which I was expecting. This has been always done. This was done in Ria's case, this was done in Shovik's case, this was done in other cases of NCB, and it has been done in this case also. I am abundantly very clear, I am very, very clear that this is being done only to ensure that the poor kid should remain inside for a further period. That's it. Not any other purpose.
You're making a very serious charge. You're claiming the NCB has, in a what is prima facie a bailable offence, created a story to ensure that Aryan Khan remains in jail. Is that what you're claiming? And the same thing happened with Riya Chakrabarti, that the NCB, which was supposed to look, its mandate was to look at major cases of interstate drug trafficking, has now honed in on this case, bailable offence prima facie, and has created a story to ensure remand. Is that what you're claiming?
This is precisely what I'm stating, and I repeat it, not only in this case, but they've done it in Riya Chakrabarti's case, and unfortunately, people have not been able to see through this game. You come make a statement of bailable offence, take their time for 2 days of investigation, and then bring material and say that now it has become a non-bailable offence. And I believe, subject to correction, on the third or the fourth day, they have already added the charge of 27 capital A, and now they will say it's a case of conspiracy, which I believe they've already said that they are bringing in the charge of 29, and therefore the charge of 29 having been added, 27 capital A will apply to everybody.
Can I bring in B.V. Kumar at this point? Because Mr. Kumar, Mr. Kumar, if what Mr. Merchant, if what Mr. Merchant is saying is right, effectively what we are seeing is NCB, the country's premier agency, is changing the goalposts to try and somehow fix someone, is what the accusation. This is, of course, a criminal lawyer arguing it. Your view, is the NCB, therefore, if the charge is made, as some people are making, that the NCB is, in this case, being used to fix someone, a particular individual, would that charge stick or not?
Is it for me, Mr. Rajdeep?
Yes, it's for you, sir. Yes, Mr. Kumar.
No, you see, depending upon the progress of investigation, new facts will come into light. There's no question of changing of goalposts. See, at the very first stage, it looks as if it's a small case involving very small quantities of drugs and other things. And a few young people were involved in a cruise for a rave party and other things. But as the investigation proceeds, when more and more evidence comes to light, naturally, not the goalposts, but even the entire investigation will take a very different turn. So you can't charge the NCB saying that they are changing the goalposts.
No, but we saw it, sir, with due regard, we saw it in the Riya Chakrabarti case. At the end of the day, the Riya Chakrabarti case of the NCB, particularly Riya's remand, really showed very, that Riya was involved in a larger drug network. None of it was proven. It was all, as it stands today, has not been able to stand the test of time.
Each case is a unique case, and we can't draw parallels. Unless the facts are identical, even the case law cannot be cited. That's the observations of the Honorable Supreme Court. Only when the facts are entirely identical in all aspects, then only you can rely upon addition of a Supreme Court. So here, the Riya Chakrabarti case was entirely different. That was in the background of a unnatural death of Sushant Singh Rajput. But here it's a case where the youngsters were attending a rave party on board the cruise, and then things came out based upon specific intelligence. That's what the NCB is claiming. Now, you have to allow fair investigation in this case. The question whether he's entitled for bail or not would entirely depend upon the Honorable Judge, based upon the evidence that will be evaluated by him and produced by the NCB, and contra evidence, if any, produced by the defense.
Very quickly,
that's how
Mr. Kumar,
the evaluation is done.
Very quickly, Mr. Kumar, are you surprised that there were people linked to a political party who accompanied the NCB on the raid? Is that usual?
No, it's absolutely unusual, and even their conduct during the course of the escorting the accused into the NCB office is unusual, and it was uncalled for, and probably that's not a thing properly done by the NCB. To that extent, I don't agree with the procedure followed by the NCB.
Let me come, though, to the other political aspect, and I'll bring you in MN Singh. I just want you to listen to the way it's also playing out, because clearly in Mumbai, there are wheels within wheels. Now you've got Sharad Pawar, Nawab, Malik, who in the last few days, NCP leaders who've also been speaking on the case, and they've tried to argue that in some way Shah Rukh Khan's son was being fixed because he was Shah Rukh Khan. son. And you've got the likes of Mehbooba Mufti, who've unfortunately even brought in the angle that perhaps because he's a Khan, i.e. a Muslim, that's why he was being fixed. Listen in to them, and I want you to respond. How politicians also are playing this case out at the moment. Listen in.
मुंबई पोलिसांचा नागपूर शिक्षा विभाग आहे त्यांनी जे कॉन्फिस्केशन केलं जे काही पकडलं त्याचा एकंदर प्रमाण हे केंद्राच्या एजन्सीच्या पेक्षा कितीतरी अधिक होतं आणि त्यामुळं त्याच्यातून एक गोष्ट संख्येला जागा अशी येते की राज्याची एजन्सी ही दिलेलं काम प्रामाणिकपणानं सखोलपणानं करते आणि ही जी सेंट्रलची एजन्सी मुंबईची जी आहे ती आम्ही काहीतरी करतो या संबंधीचं रेकॉर्ड सरकारला देण्याच्यासाठी जे काही करावं लागेल तेवढं सीमित काम करतात का काय अशी शंका त्या एकंदर क्वांटमवरनं ह्या निश्चितपणानं त्या ठिकाणी येते.
जिस तरह से केंद्रीय एजेंसी का इस्तेमाल करके चाहे वो इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट हो, ईडी हो, सीबीआई हो या और कोई डिपार्टमेंट हो, उसका गलत इस्तेमाल करके नेताओं को डराने की कोशिश की जा रही है. भारतीय जनता पार्टी हो, केंद्र की एजेंसियों का दुरुपयोग जो हो रहा है उसके खिलाफ डट के खड़े रहेंगे और कितनी भी कार्रवाई कर ले सरकार 2 साल पूरा करने जा रही है. सरकार 5 साल पूरा करेगी. कितना भी डराने का प्रयास हो हम डगमगाने वाले नहीं है.
Do you believe, MN Singh, in your long experience, that the Maharashtra politicians put pressure on the police in these high-profile cases to take one side or the other? Here you've got ruling NCB politicians attacking a central agency. Do you believe this is a bad practice, bad precedent?
Well, that is a political thing. It's difficult for me to comment on that, Rajdeep, but I don't see any evidence except for suspicion. There is no evidence to suggest that government of India as such is after this or chasing these people. That is a little far-fetched, and that everything is being made given a political color. But coming to the case per se, I'm sorry, the audio was so bad that I could not hear what Mr. B.B. Singh had to say. But let me tell you my impression about this case. First of all, I do not know what is the case against Aryan Khan. What sections of this law has been applied? Because there is no recovery from him. He was not found to have consumed. He was simply on the cruise with some friends, from one of whom some drug has been recovered. Now that itself does not mean anything as far as Aryan Khan is concerned. There is no case against him, in my opinion. Now, after 1 week, the NCB has come with a different story altogether. They are investigating some international linkages and supply and financing and all that, which seems to be a very belated kind of a thing. And now, if that is so, then it becomes a very serious matter. But to me, as it looks like, that they had thought of the plot first, and they are now trying to collect the evidence and trying to build up a case. So this is already, I mean, I'm
they are
sorry
claiming they have WhatsApp chat. They are claiming they are basing this near. They are claiming that it is WhatsApp chats which they are using to suggest that Aryan was in connection with foreign suppliers.
Let me tell you, for 1 week, the NCB in the court, whenever the bail matter came, did not present anything. Anything other, they are only saying that they are trying to connect the linkages, they are trying to collect this and build up the case. Now, after 1 week, they are putting up a story, but what is the basis of that story? One WhatsApp this thing, some messaging between Aryan Khan and others. It is not an evidence. You can't just lock up somebody like this and then start investigation and trying to build up a case. As I said, it seemed that they had already conceived of a plot, it looks like, and they are now trying to collect evidence. And there has been a lot of other suspicion which has been also created in this case. Like, for example, getting some political party workers as punch witnesses in the case. And the way these some BJP fellows were holding this Aryan Khan and dragging him like policeman, it is something I think if the NCB fellows have done it knowingly, then they were being very foolish. And if they did not take care to select a proper pancha, then again, I would say they have been very foolish, because that creates a lot of suspicion in the minds of the people. Every investigation must be very fair. Not only fair, it should seem and look like being fair. It is not enough simply to keep on denying and telling to the court, we want more time, we want. When there is a young boy, 22 years old, about what is the case against him today?
You made that point. One of the facts, though, let's get this clear, Mr. Merchant. You know, MN Singh is saying he's not clear what the case is yet, but the NCB is claiming this was a rave party where there were a number of other people, someone close to Aryan Khan they accuse of being a supplier. Now they say they have WhatsApp chats from Aryan and others. These WhatsApp chats, can they become the basis for a case like this?
Rajdeep, let me first come in saying that the very foundation of the case of NCB is questionable, of a rave party being conducted there. The thing is that there were approximately 1,800 people who are on the vessel, on the cruise. All those 1,800 people have been allowed to go. So we take it that neither of them were consumers, neither of them were found in possession. And obviously, if those people who were found in possession with small quantities like 5 grams and 6 grams cannot be engaged in a rave party. So the very case of NCB, that this was a rave party with trance music that we were going there to bust, is itself under a cloud of doubt. Now, as far as WhatsApp conversations are concerned, the WhatsApp conversations are in the form of electronic media. It's in the form of digital evidence. The digital evidence, no doubt, is admissible, but you have to prove that the prima facie evidence was received on one particular phone from another phone. So you need to have two instruments, the instrument of the sender and the instrument of the receiver. If you have just one of the phones, you just cannot claim that you have been able to bring in that much amount of electronic evidence which is capable of being converted into legally admissible evidence.
One final
this
point.
This rave party is only
right. Go ahead.
It was absolutely uncalled for. There was no question of a rave party. Otherwise, you would have searched 1,800 people. They don't claim they've searched 1,800 people. It is not their case that the 1,800 people were searched and allowed to go. You allowed the boat to sail off after you got these 8 to 10 people. And these 8 to 10 people are not capable of pushing off a rave party on the vessel.
You know, lots of troubling questions are being raised. So, B.V. Kumar, I want to come to you at the very end to ask this question. There's the role of the NCB, which in these high-profile cases is now coming under the scanner. Surely the NCB was not meant to look at whether someone has 5 grams, 6 grams. They were supposed to crack large international drug networks. But these become high-profile cases that hit the front page. The role, the behavior of NCB officials is also coming under the scanner. Also the judges and the way they look at these cases. Your view as someone who in a way initiated the NCB, is the NCB lost its way somewhere?
2-3 points if you give me about 30 seconds. Number one, the evidence of in the WhatsApp is subject to the conditions mentioned in section 65A and 65B of the Indian Evidence Act, where certain safeguards have been given on electronic evidence. Unless that is fulfilled, those evidence will not have value. The other thing is statements recorded by the NCB itself, whether it's valid in evidence or not, is before the larger bench of the Supreme Court. In an earlier program conducted by you, I've clearly mentioned what were the loopholes in the whole investigation at the ship and on the way and other things. So I'm not repeating that. But here the larger question that is involved in this particular case, we are becoming slowly and steadily a nation of drug addicts. Say in 2004, it was about 2 million. To 18-19, it became 22 million. Probably now it is about 5 crores and other things. We are one of the largest consumers of drugs in the world. 1/6 of the world production of drugs is being consumed in India. We have to see the larger picture that's happening. Unless there is a demand.
Should be, sir, with due regard, the NCB should be then cracking down on the Mundra case, where you know you've got drugs worth 20,000 crores being found. That is the case that needs to be cracked by the NCB. And here, this becomes the high-profile case. So, when you contrast an Aryan Khan case with a Mundra case, I just wonder whether the NCB's priorities need to be in cracking those cases when these large quantities are coming into the country.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. In fact, as the DRI did large cases involving huge amounts of drugs, including cocaine that was seized from time to time. That is the type of cases which they should concentrate, and not this type of cases. It should be left to the police of the having jurisdiction over the particular area and other things, who should do this type of cases, not the NCB. In fact, they can pass on such intelligence to the local police officers, and they can affect the seizures. NCB should concentrate on the organized drug syndicates and probably break them. That is more important. That's my view.
There. Clearly, the NCB also, its role needs to be looked at. We are not prejudging what happens in this case, but as all our distinguished guests are telling us, there are loopholes that need to be looked at. We cannot allow such cases to simply pass by claiming that it is high profile and therefore questions cannot be asked. Questions in the Mundra case need to be asked. Questions in Shah Rukh Khan's son need to be asked. But the NCB's role needs to be that of an impartial investigator carrying out big ticket investigations and carrying them out in a transparent and fair manner. Thank you all very much for joining me here on the news today.